Thanks for joining us. We are talking to Susan James. She is Senior Director, Telecom Strategy at Red Hat. Susan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for letting me join you again.
Now, Susan, when we last spoke to you, that was in Beijing, and at the time we discussed 5G, of course, but also NFV. So take us through all the changes that have happened since.
Well, I think I actually went back and had a look at that, and I think, as an interview it stands up really well, but some of the things that we really see continuing to develop is definitely the day two operations is something that many service providers still continue to see as a challenge. The whole life cycle management of both the application, the infrastructure is still quite a challenge. But we sort of start to see, some great examples of different service providers, implementing automation strategies and really starting to crack some of those hard nuts. I also think that, we start to see a more community and collaborative effort around these sorts of things. But we also start to see some of those early use cases of, AI creeping in and starting to be able to use some of those analytics capabilities on the automation side as well. So there's some really interesting things happening there. And also start to see a shift to some of the containerization workloads. So again, I think you'll see quite a few announcements of some of those VNFs actually becoming containerized workloads, not just virtualized.
Okay, now the first deployments of 5G have started.
Yes.
And they've been launched. So what do you think will be the next steps? And what do you think will be different?
Well, I think, as we start to see more and more 5G roll out, the need for, that virtualized core, it becomes increasingly important so that they have the flexibility in the network to be able to deal with that different flow of traffic. We start to see some of the first devices. I'm sure we'll see a lot of 5G devices announced here. So, really over the next 2 years, we'll start to see, the 5G workloads really start. And again, a shift away from, just being mainly, human-to-human communication or, humans to content. We'll start to see more of those sort of IoT workloads coming into play, and even going further, those sort of low latency type applications. So that's a really exciting time.
And let's talk a bit more about NFV, because I think it's fair to say that it has received some bad press.
Yeah.
And you might say we're in what Gartner calls the trough of disillusionment. So why should service providers stay with it? And what's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I think, when a lot of that sort of press is actually coverage of roundtables and communities that are getting together to discuss the issues of NFV. And that's great because it means that, they've started to identify, issues in common and share their learnings. And, sharing learnings is a great way of solving problems. So I think we start to see those communities of collaboration really starting to take effect. The messages that they give us are very clear. They want to see a multi-vendor, multi-application environment, and they want to see how we can manage the life cycle of those applications and manage those upgrades of that sort of more broader community of applications and ecosystem, really.
And are you able to share some positive movement stories with us, some examples?
Yes, I think we start to see a lot more automation happening, and I think when I talk to people about NFV, my first question is, do you have an automation strategy? If you don't have an automation strategy, then you need to have one. So, service providers like Telstra have done an enormous amount of work around automation. Companies like Elisa have completely automated their radio network operations. I mean, they have a demo here at Mobile World Congress, which I think is really impressive. They don't need any operation staff to operate their radio network anymore. So I think those are the sorts of things that become really exciting for service providers to really help them take that next step.
Okay, Susan James, thank you very much.
Thank you.